Welcome to Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. The podcast for pet groomers ready to start their next chapter. Let's explore what's possible when you trade in the grooming table for the freedom of virtual work. Whether you're done with the physical toll or just craving more flexibility, you're in the right place. We're staying in the pet industry, just shifting how we show up. So take a breath, step away from the table, and let's see what's waiting for you on the other side.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table, the podcast for professionals exploring life, work, purpose beyond grooming. So I'm Riverly, and I'm the founder of the Savvy Groomer or Step Away from the Table. I am coming from Japan right now. I'm recording this while I am abroad, which is so exciting. It will just be me today, but I hope to have my co-host here and another time. So this November, we're choosing gratitude over grind, okay? So we're learning to stay calm, communicate clearly, and I want you guys to work with confidence even during the holiday rush. So today's episode is all about what they don't tell you about working VA life during the holiday rush. And I know you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing about the holiday rush, but I think these are still really important points that I want to communicate with you. So I want you guys to remember November grooming, right? All the chaos and, let's be honest, caffeine and never-ending phone calls. It's just go, 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 right? And then everyone's trying to squeeze in just one more doodle before Christmas photos or before their mother-in-law is going to come judge them at Thanksgiving. And I want you to remember the energy that your supervisor is currently in. Now, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, because this is designed for virtual assistants for the pet grooming industry, using the words like clients and owners, we try to stick to the word supervisor when describing pet grooming business owners. I think it makes it a little bit easier and keeps us sane. Now, I want you to remember all the energy of grooming during those crazy times, okay? But now we are further apart from that, right? We're on the other side. We're all the way on the other side behind a computer screen, right? And if you're not supporting them directly, then I just want you to remember that the VAs that are supporting them right now are having a hard time, okay? But if you are supporting a pet grooming business and your supervisor, right, buckle up, right? Your supervisor is not going to be their best self. I don't care how much yoga, meditation, affirmations they do. They're going to be a little bit crazy, and that's okay. Okay. Remember, they're stressed, they're overbooked, they're juggling clients who are also losing it, right? I think more and more there's so much pressure around the holidays. We're in a very photogenic world. Before we used to just have one Christmas photo, and now people are posting photos of themselves and their pets every day. So there's just a lot more of that pressure going on. Now, you thought being a VA potentially meant, laptop freedom and working in a cozy cafe. And that's true, but right now you might be getting those 9 p.m. texts like, hey, can you fix this post? Or, oh, I forgot. And I think we need to have an adult conversation about what it means to be a VA during the holiday rush. Okay. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just real. Okay. So let's talk about what's really happening behind the scenes and how we are going to stay sane. Okay. And not just busy. So let's talk about the myth of being a virtual assistant and the reality of VA life during this time. So, one of the things that I find really difficult personally is that often I hear people selling the VA life like this kind of like pie in the sky, very romantic version. And I try to give you guys a very grounded reality, okay? It's not total freedom. It's not this like laptop from anywhere. I mean, a little bit, but not exactly, right? I think a lot of people picture themselves like sipping coffee in a cafe in France and working from literally the beach or this totally stress-free, no boss life, right? No schedule, no boss, no worries, just effortlessly easy, right? I think it would be the equivalent of people saying to us, "Oh, you groom puppies for a living, and I love doggies," right? We have to be real here. So the reality is sometimes you're juggling tasks, you're changing priorities, and you're getting messages in at weird hours, especially when you're traveling internationally. That's just a reality. And again, usually your supervisor is in their worst place emotionally this time of year. So they're exhausted, they're overworked, probably overbooked themselves because they were trying to be nice, or their employee was trying to be nice, right? Or maybe they told you, say, hey, we're going to have Susie Q come work for us during the holidays so we can have an extra 5 dogs a day. And then Susie Q decides she's not available, right? There's so many scenarios that can happen. And unfortunately, when they're in that stressed out, crazy mindset, sometimes for better, for worse, shit rolls downhill, right? And for them, they're stressed out, so they may project those problems onto you. I just want to be real. And I'm not saying that you should be anyone's punching bag, but the truth is, you'll probably catch some of their stress. They're stressed out, they're having a hard time, and it's not your fault. You didn't create it. It's important to remember that flexible, right, flexible work does not mean 24/7. And I had this great conversation with my son about this because he lives in a world where he's always seen people on call. Like if you ask somebody who's under 20 what on call means, it's kind of a foreign subject, right? Because if you watch things like Wall Street with Gordon Gekko, or let's say in the 80s, 90s, where these really high power people have cell phones and they go everywhere and they're on call 24/7, right? When I was a kid, on call was for surgeons and maybe judges, like really powerful, high paid people. And now we kind of expect people to reply to our text immediately, no matter where they are, what they're doing. So this is a great opportunity for you to set some boundaries and have adult conversations with your supervisor and maybe even yourself, okay? And remember, when you're on international time zone differences, you are not expected to stay up till 2 a.m. to do a quick fix, right? Again, there might be situations where if you don't have set working hours that you're going to accomplish things, like for instance, if as a virtual assistant you've said, oh, I'm available between 9 and 5 Eastern Standard Time, or I'm going to do all of my work during that time, you may want to next season change that. Because for me right now in Tokyo, I am an entire day early, right? Right now I'm on Wednesday, November 5th as I'm recording this. However, in the Eastern back home near Boston, it is currently Wednesday, November 4th. So it's so interesting because again, the dates that we set things, the time zones, everything, it gets really complicated. And as a virtual assistant, you do want to make sure that you're going to have time to do all of that, right? And remember that you left grooming to have this better life. And I'm not saying that grooming is not an amazing life, but it probably wasn't the right fit for you or wasn't the right fit for you anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. I personally miss a lot of things about grooming full time. And I wish I could go back sometimes to full time grooming. But the VA life is just a different life. And so you need to embrace that, but also have a lot of sympathy for people right now that are in the thick of it, right? And I'm not talking about the groomers that have great boundaries and they're really organized, but the people that are in this transition where they're learning those boundaries, you're starting to enforce them. Okay. You don't want to be in a position where basically November, December turns into insomnia burnout months. Okay. And remember, the grooming industry runs on a rhythm, right? So busy November, December's generally means slower January, February's. For a lot of groomers, I see 50% slashes. Or the people that come in November, December for that once a year groom, twice a year groom are not going to come in for January, February. So this is a great opportunity again to set your supervisor's expectations. That might be something like, hey, all these things that projects we've been working on, let's put them off to January, February, so we can really focus on keeping the things that you need done, right? And again, if you're doing things like social media, it might be like, hey, let's not even worry about more than just doing basic posts. Let's just do easy breezy posts. We don't need the marketing, right? We're not looking for new clients. Let's just post before and afters or cute little Thanksgiving, Christmas things. And then for January, February, let's start working on drumming up those things, right? So we can start shifting that and helping our supervisors make better choices together. Depending upon where your clients are, those rushes may be different. I do have some students that intentionally have their VA, I'm sorry, their supervisors in different areas. So they may have, again, in colder climates where it's a traditional November, December, let's say in New England, they have the Russian November, December, and then they also have snowbirds. And so they have people in Florida or out in Arizona, they have their groomers that they work for. And so they have different seasons, right? Because again, it's not uncommon for the November, December people traditionally, let's say they do live, for instance, in New York. And then, they're leaving after Christmas, after they have family time. They're then going to snowbird, let's say, to Arizona in January, February. So for those groomers, November, December may not be as busy, might be mostly locals. And then January, February might be really busy, and vice versa, right? If you live in a place where the summer is a really touristic place, you might be super busy over the summer, but in the winter, it's really quiet. So again, if you're a VA and you want to spread out those chaotic time versus everyone having those same times of chaos, it's totally up to you as a VA. You need to know what you want to do as a virtual assistant, and I can't tell you what you want to do. So don't worry. Either way, it's always good. So remember to take a deep breath. Remember you left grooming for flexibility and not 14-hour screen days. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's totally normal. It's not about being a failure. It's a sign that you as a virtual assistant need to find your flow. And everyone is so different, right? I work very different than Jess works versus many of my other students. There's things that work for me that don't work for them. It's an incredibly individualized experience. And freedom doesn't mean no structure, right? So people think that freedom means no work times and no whatever. Like I can just do whatever I want whenever I want. But that still means that someone has to build it, right? Because having no guardrails, right? It's like driving out into the desert. It's really good for us to have roads and guardrails and a map to know where we're going. But that doesn't mean that the destination has to be different. So I want you to make sure that as you're moving into November, December, if those are your busy times for your supervisors, that you do have kind of an idea of how you want to work. And maybe this year there are no roads and maps, metaphorically. And next year you're going to work on adding those mapways and roadways. Maybe you're going to help your supervisors get more prepared. There's so many ways to do it. I will say this, that you need to prepare for the, oh, can you just 10-minute, right, task that very easily turns into the 3-hour chain where you're doing a million things. I don't know if you guys know the kids' song. Um, He goes, Hi, my name is Joe. I work in a button factory. One day, my boss came to me and said, Joe, are you busy? I said, No. Well, then he asked me to push my button with my right hand. And then the children just keep pressing a button. And then the song goes on, and then it's your left hand and your right hand, and then your right foot, your left foot, and you're using your head. And at the end of it, my boss came to me and said, you know, are you busy? And I said, yes. And the kids are supposed to jump up and fall on the ground. And what's really cute about that is that it really does show us that people are going to say yes, 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 yes until you can't anymore. And so our goal is I can do one hand, maybe I can do two, but I'm not doing my feet, I'm not doing my head in this, right? You want to make sure that you are setting these boundaries and that's it's something that we're all learning, right? I think and it's hard, especially when you're on the computer, because it feels so much easier than actually being in the thick of it, right? I physically couldn't do more when I was 10 dogs deep, but now it's just a computer. It can feel a lot easier. Okay. And every VA learns how to spot them earlier and earlier and set boundaries faster next time. So every time you do it, you go, ah, I have learned this. I'm not going to do this, or this is how I handle it. So the grooming calendar doesn't care if you as a VA want a super chill week. So when you're taking on supervisors and they are planning on having additional hours during the holiday season, this is something that we should have discussed before the holidays, but maybe they didn't really think about it. So if you've taken on a supervisor who doesn't have strong boundaries yet, they may not understand why you are now setting those stronger boundaries. And I don't think it's intentionally disrespect. I think it's just their habits. And you're going to teach them those what they look like. So some people need to see what kind of firm, healthy boundaries or expectations are modeled like, right? It's kind of like if you've never seen somebody who knows how to get angry and then cool off. If you've only seen people that get angry and violent, you may not understand how somebody may or may not cool down. So this is a great opportunity for you to model it. Ugh, and I will say, take it with a grain of salt, everyone, that for better or for worse, you should have beforehand discussed this. But again, you don't know what you don't know. They may need to add an extra 10, 12, 15 hours per week or per the month, hours worth of time for you, right? This might mean more appointments. This might mean more reschedules. There might be bad weather. And you need to know, hey, if there's a snowstorm and your mobile gets canceled for a few days, is this something you're expecting me to call and cancel all these people, or is this something that they're going to do? This may not be something that they've even thought about. So this is an opportunity both for you to grow as a VA and learn what you don't know, and for them as a supervisor to learn what they could do better. So you can love your supervisor and still give them some distance. Compassion doesn't mean that you overextend yourself. Compassion does not mean that you are staying up till 2 a.m. your time in order to call and reschedule all those people when it was not explicitly put into your contract, right? And this is why having your contract with your supervisor, what is my responsibility, what is not my responsibility, is incredibly important. And we'll also say to remind you that you're a partner in their business, not literally a partner, but you're helping them grow their business, right? But you are not a pressure valve and you are not a punching bag. And if you start to feel like you're drowning, don't spiral into, I stink as a VA, I suck at this, right? Remember, you're not failing, you're just learning how to do this better, right? You're invited to tune into your workflow and figure out, okay, maybe next year I don't want to do any phone calls. And you can set that boundary with your supervisor. Hey, during the holiday rush, I do not do appointments or phone calls because you may know that this is not something you want to do. And that allows them to either outsource it or hire someone temporarily, right? And again, every struggle highlights a system, a process, a boundary that needs attention and ways to struggle with it, right? And I think that sucks, right? Because in a perfect world, we would learn how to do this without all of that. But I don't think that's realistic. I think for better, for worse, what's more realistic is for us to learn by failing or by falling or by trying hard and sucking at it. I think that's how most of us learn, unfortunately. It's very inconvenient, but I think it's the reality. So, going back to understanding your supervisor's chaos, remember that groomers are not mad at you. They're just maxed out, right? Now, most of the VAs I'm talking to here, you guys are not office managers, but give me a minute so I can talk to the office managers directly. If you're an office manager and you're in charge of managing staff, understand that they're being pushed to the max, at least if your supervisor is doing that. And while technically you're not their boss, right? And technically, for better for worse, you're not the boss either, right? You're not their boss, and technically, you know, you're not their boss and you're not the boss of them. So that gets a little bit complicated, right? Because ultimately your supervisor is in charge. Your supervisor is ultimately responsible and the one to be held accountable. But, we have to remember that we're also not the one getting anal glands in our hair, right? We're also not the one finding poop in your pocket, like going to lunch or getting home and finding that wonderful nugget. I remember one groomer, she had, I don't know why her purse was on her table. We're not here to judge, but like she literally went home and she found a giant steaming poo in her purse. We're not having that experience anymore as a virtual assistant. And we have to really tune into what that felt like and be fair, right? So, because like we're gonna have to work on growing our patience. And again, I'm not saying be a punching bag or a pressure valve, but what is important is that we are being kind and empathetic while still holding people accountable. So, real talk here, okay? Groomers in November and December can be absolutely feral. I know that's unflattering. I have been one of them, but it's true. So, they're probably not eating. And if they are eating, it's probably crap food, right? And they're probably not drinking. And if they are, it's probably Monster, Red Bull, or some other dehydrating sugary caffeine. And to be fair, old habits die hard, okay? I am not any better. I am here in Japan recording things with this amazing, delicious purple grape flavored Red Bull. Um, so I'm not saying I'm better, but it's the truth, okay? And for people that are literally surrounded by water all day, nobody drinks water. And so again, remember, they're not mad at you. They're hangry. They're stressed. They're probably behind on their schedule. They want to go home. They want to deal with their own family and their own chaos. And they probably haven't even brushed their own dog. So they're dealing with mom guilt, whether that's dog mom or kid mom. They're dealing with all the crap that comes with the American experience. And if you're not dealing with Americans, trust me, I don't care what you say. Everyone's feeling guilt this time of year. It's a wonderful time of year. But I think as a groomer, there's this cute meme where it's Johnny Depp in I think it's Finding Neverland. And Johnny Depp is like, "Oh, but it's almost Christmas." And it's like this little kid crying. And he's like, "But I'm a dog groomer." And I think that's the experience. Like everyone's like, "Are you excited for Christmas and Thanksgiving?" And we're like, "No, no, I am not." But it's still a fun time of year. So, emotional labor, holding space for somebody else's stress, okay? It is emotionally taxing to deal with people that are stressed out. I get that. Think about a phrase or something that you can say to make them feel seen, heard, or understood. What did you want your boss to say when you were elbows deep grooming for Christmas? What did you want them to say? Did you want them to say thank you or I'm so sorry? Like, what was something that would have made you feel more seen and heard? What is that thing? Um, and I will say you're going to have to learn how to detach with kindness. So remember, it's not about me, they're underwater, right? It's not about me, they're having a really hard time. And again, that's not an easy thing to do, but it is something that is significantly more fair, okay? Because again, we're here behind the computer screen. We are not in the thick of it anymore. Some tools you can use are short breaks, boundaries with your messages, and post shift. So if you do give yourself a shift, have some decompression. I know for me personally, when I have a lot of those things, what I will do is I will set a timer. I will do X amount of hours of work. It's generally about this time of year when I have a lot of things that are high stress, I will do an hour and then I will set a timer. I will get a snack. And then I will probably watch like 30 minutes of something. Or if I can do longer, if I'm in a space and place where I can handle more, sometimes I can't. Like an hour is my max. But if I can handle more, maybe I do 3, 4 hours worth of work, and then I reward myself with a snack and a movie. Not Lord of the Rings, no 3 hour movie, but like an hour and a half, 2 hour movie. It's something funny that I can take my mind off, whatever it is. It's really important to decompress, and decompressing could be mindless scrolling, which normally wouldn't encourage, but right now it's just about what is going to help your brain shut off and relax. Again, we're not somebody's punching bag, but I do suggest that you use this as a learning curve to start talking about the opportunity to drop anyone who's slightly disrespectful, right? So if somebody is having a bad day, take the opportunity to evaluate, are they normally like this and I've just been ignoring it? Or is this something that you're like, you know what? I'm going to take the opportunity to later let this person go after the holiday meeting. Unless if someone is really, 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 really bad, I do not think that you should drop them during the holiday season. I think they are their worst self. And I think that as a compassionate person, unless if somebody is really out of line, I would give them a little bit of grace. And then in January, say, listen, this can never happen again. This is not okay. Again, you need to learn how to be compassionate without absorbing that energy. So say no to listening things like the long what the F stories because they're generally not productive. Tell them you can plan an hour after the holidays where you can have beer or wine, like a nice little get together and hear all about the stories, right? This is a great one if you guys work for Thanksgiving and then, maybe one of those days, like do Black Friday because Black Friday is hard. You can say, listen, before we start the Christmas rush, why don't we just plan a day? And I want to hear all the stories. I want to hear everything. You can just let them vent. But again, that's paid, right? This is not, I don't think they would want to use one of their hours to do it, but they will absolutely unintentionally use one of those hours when they're in the thick of it. And it's not good for you because you could literally spend all of their hours listening to them vent versus saying, hey, let's just get through this. And at the end of it, I'd love to sit down. And if you want to do that as a friendly gesture, there's nothing wrong with that either. You might find yourself getting some emotional whiplash or feeling like I don't want to say that they're bipolar, but there might be that hot cold, right? You could be like, oh my God, you're a lifesaver. And why isn't this done yet? You might get those constant back and forth. You have to remember it's a lot easier for us to sit calmly at this desk a million miles away from the chaos. This is how corporate used to treat us, right? When we were working for the pet somethings. And they'd be like, why didn't you answer the phone? And you were like, well, that's because I was grooming 10 dogs with zero help. Uh, and I was expected to take all of the walk and nail clips and somehow I was supposed to maintain everything around me, right? And then your eye would be sitting there twitching, right? You're like, I don't know, why didn't I answer the phone? I don't know, I'm just doing everything. So you have to remember, if they're happy, let them be happy. If they're sad, let them be sad. But don't feel like you need to be judgmental. Whatever's going on in them with them, you can't be responsible for. And if you need a quick visual, remember, like wiggle, 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 wiggle. Picture the shop, dryers, screaming like Frenchies, phones ringing, like hair just flying everywhere. It's in your coffee, it's in your food, you know? There's poop, but you don't know where it is. You can just smell it, but you have no idea who it came from. And you're hoping it's not that once a year Great Pyrenees, right? That you just finished washing and drying. I mean, we've all been there. You told your boss no more dogs, yet somehow two more dogs ended up on your schedule, and they swear that they've always been there. That's the groomer. And then the supervisor is having a scenario where, the employee called out for the second time this week because they just didn't feel like it, or they're showing up late, or, you know, the dryer broke, or maybe the water heater of all days, decided to go today. So that's where they're at. And when we're looking at messages from them, that could be the energy in their text messages. Now, if you haven't already seen the Key and Peele skit where one guy is texting like, "Oh, this is so sweet," and the other guy's like, "Oh my God, we're gonna go." Like he thinks that this is a fight. I highly suggest you watch that. I think that's such a great educational thing to watch because sometimes when we're reading text, we could be either energy. I always assume that everyone is happy. I actually, one of the tricks I do personally is I have it in the voice that I make for my cat. And don't lie, like all of us have voices for our dogs or cats. And my cat is kind of derpy. If you haven't met my cat's name is Fire, and he is precious, and I love him. So the voice kind of goes like, yeah, yeah, oh, I'm a cat. Ooh, ooh. Like he's very derpy. So someone writes something like, why isn't it done? I don't read as, oh, why isn't it done? Or, oh, why isn't it done? Right? Instead, I go, oh, hey, why isn't this done? Right? Because again, it's cute and it makes me happy and it makes me smile, and I don't take it personally. Instead of it as being a personal attack, I think of it more of like a dopey, happy kitty cat who's like, oh, why isn't this done? La 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 la. Right? Find tricks like that that work for you. It's going to make you a lot happier, I promise. Remember that you're in charge of your emotions, and I highly suggest you give it a chance to relax. Don't assume everyone's being disrespectful, especially with how many people we have in this industry on the spectrum. Direct communication, they may have to unmask. You might be like, oh, but they're never like this. I'm like, yeah, but if they're on the spectrum and they're too tired and they are unmasking, you may start to notice that all of a sudden that like flowery, friendly is now super direct. And if they're in a shitty mood, it's your job not to match it, okay? You're the professional but I would suggest you try to stabilize it. Again, you're not someone's punching bag, but I also don't think you need to expect them to be their best selves. Give them some grace. We have all been here. I think it's the least we can do to just kind of try our very best, right? Try our very best to make them feel seen, heard, and get them through. And then on the other side, then let's work with it. So, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here with me. I know the background kind of sucks, but that's okay because we are here in Japan, which is amazing. And for you guys, I know that it's a situation that this is something that you might want to consider in the future. So thank you so much for listening. This was what they don't tell you about VA life during the holiday season. I hope you have a very productive holiday season. And if you're watching this at another time, just remember this is great practice for next year. All right. Thank you so much. Bye now.
Thanks for joining me on Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. If today's episode sparked something in you, don't forget to follow, share, or leave a review. It helps more groomers like you find their next step. You don't have to do this alone, but you get to do it your way. Until next time, take a deep breath and keep moving forward.